In life, we come across a number of individuals, and sometimes we really don't know how we come about them. I will tell you that through a LinkedIn post, a gentleman saw the post and said, hey, you need to get hold of this guy. He's got a message. He's wrote a book. Well, I did that, and I kind of kept track of him over the last number of years. He's been here at our studio here in Orlando, and I'm not going to tell you everything because there's kind of a two-part with this guy. He's going to give you his talk first, and then we're going to spend about an hour with you going over a very important part of this Rock Stars of Cleaning conference. Now, currently, he is a facility manager in a school district in Ohio. He is the co-creator of the Rock Star Custodian program. He is the author of the book, Who Swings Your Mop? And he's got a few other ones that he's authored as well. I'm not going to go into those right now. However, from Columbus, Ohio area, let me introduce you to Mike Ward. His talk this morning is Who is Driving Who? Mike, the stage is yours.
Who drives you? Who drives your daily production, your career success, your abilities, your knowledge, your skills? Hopefully it's you and not someone else. Today I'm going to talk to you about two essential rock star traits to get you on the path to be a rock star custodian. Now these traits are very important to not only custodians, but they're also important to anybody in any field. Now, I want to note before I get started that I'm predominantly talking from a school setting, whether that be a public school or a private school, a college or university. And I also want to tell you that at the end, I'll be talking about a few tools that you can use that are on my PEP Talks booth and also my website, custodialzone.com. These two Rockstar traits are also the core of the Custodial Rockstar program. So let's dive right in with the first Rockstar trait, and that is attitude. Now you might be saying, well, duh, of course you should have a good attitude. Well, unfortunately, in our field, we have some folks that don't necessarily have the best attitudes. But I want to talk about three particular type of attitudes centered around custodial work. The first one I want to talk about is an attitude of open-mindedness. If you don't have an attitude of open-mindedness, you're really going to struggle working in a school. I'll tell you a few little stories about open-mindedness. I remember when I started in this business 31 years ago, I was a custodian at a high school, and the last part of my shift, I mopped this hallway, which I think was like 50 yards long. Maybe my memory makes it seem bigger than it was. But at any rate, I had to change the water solution a couple times to get this hallway mopped by hand. Now, had I had a closed-minded attitude, then I would have really missed out a few years later when the supervisor came up and said, hey, Mike, would you be open to trying this new Zamboni thing called an auto scrubber? Luckily, I did. And by doing that, I saved myself a lot of wear and tear on my body, time. And then also, we all know the auto scrubber does a better job than the traditional mop and bucket. Secondly, same type of situation. I was asked to try out this new restroom machine about 20 years ago, the touch-free restroom machine that many of you are familiar with. But again, if I would have had my mind set around, I use a Johnny mop and my towels, or nowadays microfiber towels, then I would have missed out on the opportunity to use a great piece of equipment called a no-touch restroom machine that does a much better job than the traditional way of cleaning. Another thing is laying floor finish. Even to this day, I'll go into schools across the country and I'll see people laying floor finish with a rayon mop. Yes, it will work, but there are so many better tools out there that can make the job much easier and do a much better job and actually save on product. So have that attitude of open-mindedness. The second type of attitude I want to talk about is an attitude of service. So I always tell people we work in public education. Public means people. And if you can't get along with people that are 3 foot tall to 7 foot tall, you probably need to find a different career. So when I talk about service, we all do our jobs cleaning our areas and our zones in our schools and universities. But we also have life outside of custodial work. And some of us are avid readers or very good at music or math or whatnot. Well, I promise you that every school in America has students struggling with reading, math, music, or whatever skill you have outside of the workplace. Did you ever think about the attitude of service and donating an hour or two a week to tutor a student or two or three? What a great way to give back. I remember when I was the head custodian over 20 years ago at an elementary school, I loved the kids. I loved interacting with the kids and also the staff. And I had really close relationships. In fact, I didn't even feel like the custodian. I just felt like a staff member. So I would do anything. I'd go in and read a book to the kindergartners or whatever. And then one day, the PTA president came up to me and she said, "Hey, Mr. Mike, would you help us with the fundraiser?" And I immediately said, "Sure. How many chairs do you need?" And she says, "No, we don't want you to set up chairs. We want you to be a part of the assembly." So what had ended up happening was we were getting the kids to sell wrapping paper, and they asked if they could wrap Mr. Mike up in this wrapping paper and be like the Incredible Hulk and bust out of it. And this wrapping paper was a lot stronger than your traditional wrapping paper. It was high quality wrapping paper. And I did that, and it took me all of maybe about 15 minutes. And the kids loved it. We had great success with the fundraiser, and it just took a few minutes of my time. So there's tons of ways that you can be of service and have an attitude of service. So I encourage you to look into those. Also, the third one is an attitude of gratitude. And this one is really, really cool. It's probably my favorite one because it, again, if you haven't noticed already, I'm a bit of a storyteller. But in that same elementary school, 20-some years ago, every morning at 8:30, I would go out and meet a parent in the parking lot and help her get Billy out of the car. He was severely handicapped. He couldn't walk. He couldn't talk. I would say things like, "Wow, that's a cool t-shirt, Billy," or "Good morning." And he would just get this big smile on his face. But at any rate, I would help him get in the wheelchair and take him into the school. And I've never forgotten that my whole career and even to this day. So sometimes I get custodians that get a crappy attitude, and I'll share the story of Billy. And, it comes into play when I am asking people, "Hey, such and such is on vacation tonight. We need to set up for this event." And I'm met with, "Well, that ain't my problem that they're off. It's not my, job to do their job for them when they're off." I'll tell them that story, Billy. And then I'll also follow that up with, "Can you imagine if Billy could get out of that wheelchair for just one day and do your job and all the extra things I'm asking you to do? Do you think he would complain or those types of things? Or would he just say, 'I'd be happy to do that'?" Of course he would. So sometimes people get a different perspective when you talk about situations like that. We take for granted that we can walk, and even if we have a bad knee, we go to, "Well, I got a bad leg." Well, at least you can walk. There's hundreds of thousands of people in wheelchairs that would love the opportunity to do your job. So remember that gratitude. The nice thing about attitude is it's like a light switch. You can just flip it on. You can say, "You know what? I've had a crappy attitude for a couple of years now, or 10 years or 10 years. And today I'm going to change it, because having a good attitude will make you happier, more successful, and above else, a rock star custodian that drives your situation instead of somebody else driving it for you." The second thing I want to talk about is that second rock star trait that is that of organization. And you might say, "Well, I'm pretty organized. I really don't need to work on organization." Well, I want to talk about 4 red flags that might be saying to you, "Yeah, I do need to work on organization." The first one is maybe it takes you longer to do your job than it does somebody else who does a similar job. If that's the case, maybe you'll want to ask them to mentor you or explain to you how they go about their day. Get some feedback. Another thing that's out there that you might look into is something called a spaghetti diagram. Now, I'm not going to go into what a spaghetti diagram is, but long story short, it is measuring all the unnecessary steps that you may be taking that will cause you to take you longer to do your job. So again, get some feedback from others, how they do their job, and observe others and figure out what it is to help you do your job in a more timely manner, in a more organized way. The second thing I want to talk about with organization is you can't find things. How many times have we seen custodians that are going all over the building looking for, a screwdriver, a plunger, a roll of toilet paper, soap, and they're going through all the closets trying to find this stuff, and they're unorganized and they're missing products that we need to do our jobs, and that takes more time and it causes frustration. So if you're having that kind of situation, then it's probably a whole building problem. So every custodial closet, as you know, should be stocked, ready to go. So if you need to grab something for a nearby classroom, then it's readily available and easy to grab. So make sure those custodial carts, closets, and storage spaces are cleaned and organized. That's a key to your success and a key to being a rock star. The third one I want to talk about might raise your eyebrows just a little bit, and that is, do you find yourself frustrated or agitated? And you might say, well, what's that got to do with organization? Well, I know for me, every night, that is, if I don't get my gym bag ready the night before for my morning workout, my lunch packed and ready to go for the next day, and my clothes laid out, I know I'm going to start out that next day frustrated and just feel at a loss right from the first step out of bed. So it makes a big difference when I'm in my attitude for the day, when I'm ready to go and organized for that next day. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is, are you organized, or are you proactive versus reactive? So how many times do you have principals coming up to you telling you to do this and telling you to do that? Well, that's common to happen from time to time. It shouldn't happen all the time. If your principal or supervisor is constantly telling you what to do, then that's a huge red flag that you need to work on organization. So you might be saying to yourself, well, how do I get organized? Well, one of the things that I think is the first key to being a rock star custodian is having this thing right here called a custodial reference book. Now, in this custodial reference book, these are the things that you'll see in my booth. Several examples. You'll see a map of the building and who cleans what, whose area is whose, those types of things. And then you'll see a custodial task guide. Now, a custodial task guide is, for all intents and purposes, a schedule, but I don't call them schedules because for some strange reason, custodians think the word schedule means micromanaging, and it doesn't, and it shouldn't. So it's a guide to help you be successful. And that guide needs to be detailed and really laid out in a way that shows how you do your job and when you do your job. So if a principal, for example, comes up and wants you to do something like burnish your hallways every day and you don't have time to do that, then you will be able to share your task guide and ask them, what is it that I'm going to have to take off of here in order to, take care of that for you. So it keeps you in control and driving the program. Other things in the custodial reference book are item location maps, where the light switches are, where the shutoffs are, those types of things, setups for programs and banquets and those types of things, the lunchroom setup. All those things are very important to have an organized plan. Also, you might have a 3 to 5 year painting or floor stripping plan, along with a week-by-week summer cleaning plan. So you can show people week 1, this is where we're at in the building, week 2, week 3, and so forth and so on. So another few little quick items here. I love to have a beginning of the year letter for teachers and staff, letting them know who we are, what we do, how to contact us, what information we need for a work order. Another cool tool that I use is an end of the year letter with a checklist to help teachers check out of the room and prepare their room for summer cleaning. All these communication tools are just another form of organization that will help you be successful. So I just want to leave you with a thought, and that is attitude and effort both come from the mind. So have an open mind, have a heart of service, an attitude of gratitude, and have a proactive plan to help you and your team be rock star custodians and drive your situation instead of someone else driving it for you. Thank you.